Live from the Tanzu TV studio, it's Tanzu Tuesdays. Your host, Tiffany Jenigan.
Hi everyone, welcome to Tanzu Tuesdays, either for your first time or again, hopefully again, and it's great to see all of you who are signed in on the chat and whatnot. So this coming week, if we have for Spring 1 tour, if you can go to tanzu.tv/s1t, we have two days of it that start tomorrow. So tomorrow there is a talk and that'll be for about 2 hours. And then the next day there's a workshop and you'll need to specifically sign up for the workshop. The talk is going to be streamed via Twitch, so on this channel. So yeah, if you just go to tanzu.tv under Spring 1 Tour, and it's basically a combination of Spring and Kubernetes. And then next week on Tanzu Tuesdays, which is what you're watching right now, we have Jonathan Ivanov, and he's going to be talking about observability and how he joined the Spring team. Things like interview experience, daily work on a Spring team, and a bunch of things like that. So check that out. And we also have other shows and episodes, either past episodes or upcoming, on just, again, tanzu.tv. You can see that there's code where the Spring team, different person each week from our team, they talk about different things with Spring. It's live demo coding with Java and Spring. And then we have Between Chair and Keyboard, which is conversations with Nate Shuda. And there's just a bunch of different things we have there. So there's something to cater to whatever you might be interested in. And just a reminder, Tanzu Tuesdays is now at 12 p.m. Pacific time and not 1 p.m. Pacific time, to help for folks who are not in the US time zones. So yeah, so today we have Gary Russell, who has kindly joined us. So welcome, Gary.
Hi.
So it's my first time meeting you, so nice to actually meet you. So I want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, sure. I joined VMware in late 2009 to work on the Spring project as a consultant and trainer. Moved into full-time engineering in early 2011, and been here ever since. Currently the lead of the Spring for Apache Kafka project and Spring AMQP, which is our Spring for RabbitMQ. I'm a prior lead of the Spring integration project. My experience going back years was in enterprise integration, which is why I spent a lot of my time on the Spring integration project. That's pretty much it.
Where are you joining from today?
I live just outside of Philadelphia. I'm from the UK originally, but I've been here for most of my life, actually. Little more than half of my life. So, but yeah, just outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's still one of the places on my have never visited to need to visit is Philadelphia. Except for, like, I was looking at it and I was just like, should I go during, like, as my next trip or not?
I mean, a lot of history downtown for sure, with the Independence Hall and the whole area there. They've done a pretty nice job of displaying the history. And I live actually very close to Valley Forge National Park, where Washington camped up with his troops before beating the Brits.
Yeah, I definitely want to go see more national parks. The thing is, like, especially lately, I've been hearing that even with just like hiking, everyone is out, and that's nerve-wracking. So fully vaccinated, but still scared of people. So yeah, if you could be anywhere, like on a future trip, if you could just go to anywhere that you wanted to go to, like what's your favorite place to go?
I'd like to go back to Hawaii. It's been 30 years since I was last there. So yeah, I'd like to go back there.
Yeah, I feel like that's the place that a lot of people have been talking about lately. And I actually see some people that are just like, I'm just gonna work remotely there for like the next month. And yeah, I'd like to go back too. I apparently went until like I was like 7, but I don't remember it. Sorry, parents, for spending all the money on flights and everything, but I don't remember it. So yeah, that would be nice. But yeah, so do you have any other upcoming like events or talks that you want to share?
Not currently. I've been pretty swamped work-wise, so I haven't really planned much in the way of this kind of thing. But I'm happy to do this.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Yeah, so yeah, I'll kick it off to you. So
Right.
go ahead.
Okay, so let me share my screen. You see okay, Tiffany?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, so what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit. I started this project, I think it was in 2016, when Kafka was fairly raw around the edges, and we had a previous project which was a Spring integration extension for Kafka, but I decided that we really needed to bring it in line with the other messaging projects that we have. So we have Spring AMQP, which I mentioned is for RabbitMQ. In core Spring, the Spring JMS. And so what I wanted to do is to bring similar programming styles and functionality to use with Apache Kafka. So that was sort of why we started the project back in 2016, and it's evolved some since then. And I really wanted to show today a quite a significant community contribution to the project regarding retrying and stuff. So I'm just going to walk through some basics just for those of you that haven't seen the project at all before, and then I'll move on to exploring that new feature. But before we go there, just to get people find their way around, you can go to Spring.io, and you can always get to the project page by hitting this projects, and there's overview, and then you can scroll down, and then here we have Spring for Apache Kafka. And here you'll find just a brief overview of what the project is and does, and links to documentation and Java docs. And we always start the Java doc with the reference manual with a what's new section, so you can skim over this. And this is the feature that I'm going to be talking about today. From the project page, you can also link to the GitHub repo. There are a few samples in here, not many. The project that I'm going to use today for today's demonstration I'm going to add it into here, so it'll show up there in maybe by tomorrow or later today. It'll be sample number 4. The other thing is that we're very active on Stack Overflow. There's a lot of questions. We get a lot of questions on Stack Overflow. So if I go back to oh, there we go. So another good resource is I must have answered hundreds, if not thousands, of questions on Stack Overflow. So if you just look for the Spring Kafka tag, there's a lot of good examples out there too. So with that being said, I think I'm going to move on to just a quick overview, show you the very simplest Kafka application, and so let's jump over into this. Is a very simple app. This is just it's got a simple REST controller for so that I can push data in. You can see here I'm just simply adding some text to the URL, and then all we do is to use this Kafka template object. This is similar to, there's a JMS template in the JMS project, there's a Rabbit template in the Spring AMQP project, and we have the Kafka template in here. This is an abstraction. If anybody's looked at the Kafka configuration, there's a fairly large amount of boilerplate involved with setting up producers and consumers. And what Spring aims to do, and this is across all the project, is to reduce the boilerplate and simplify things for the developers so that you can just get up and running quickly and not have to worry about all that boilerplate stuff. And in conjunction with Spring Boot's opinionated auto configuration, it makes it even simpler. I mean, there's virtually no other configuration here. This is talking to a Kafka broker on localhost. If you were talking to a real cluster, the only thing you really have to do is to configure the host and port for the brokers. But it's as simple as this. We can just send a message, and this is basically sending whatever comes in on the URL to this topic called topic 4. And then on the consumer side, this is basically the simplest consumer. We annotate a method with Kafka listener. We can give it an ID, we can tell it which topics we want to listen to, and then this is the code. You can just do whatever you want. Now, obviously, I'm just using string here. In a real application, probably using domain objects that maybe get serialized and deserialized to them from JSON, or Avro is another option for moving rich objects between microservices. And then this has just got some. I'm going to be using this later. Where if I send a message call that starts with fail, then I'm going to throw an exception, so you can see how the built-in recovery works in this application. But that's pretty much it. That is the application. So we just have the Kafka template to send some data and the Kafka listener to receive data. So I'm going to run it. And I'll switch over to my command line. I'm just going to use curl to post a message that just says, I said, send good. And sure enough, in the application, we received good. Now, if I send, and this is with out of the box and with the default error handlers. If I send, I'm going to send a message that says fail and follow it with a message that's good. So I'll send both of those. Now, if I switch over, what we'll see is the default out-of-the-box code will keep retrying. This is a default error handler. It keeps retrying for 9 additional attempts, so 10 delivery attempts in total, and then it gives up. I've turned off logging here to make things easier, but when the final failure occurs and we no longer retry it, then the default out-of-the-box configuration will simply log the record that failed to be delivered. But as you can see, because of the nature of Kafka is a linear log of messages or a linear log of records. We can't read the second message until we've actually successfully processed the failing message. So we try that 10 times, give up, and then we move on to the next record in the log. So let me close this. I'm going to switch to a newer version of the application. So a newer version of the application. So with this version, I've enhanced the listener a little bit in that I've now added these a couple of other parameters to the listener. So we get the record value in this parameter in, and now I'm picking up some headers from the message. So I want to get the topic we received it from and the actual offset in the log of that message. And so I've also enhanced this info. So if I run this one now, and send my two fail followed by good again. Now we'll see basically the same, but with a little bit more information. That this record that's failing is at offset 38 in the partition that we're consuming from. Now, you notice as well that these 10 attempts have no delay between them. That they're essentially we're reseeking. Now these retries are not happening in memory. So Kafka still knows that we're alive, even if these retries take the aggregate of these retries take more than the polling interval. Then Kafka won't throw us out. That's it, just to back up a step. If you take too long to process records that are returned when you poll Kafka, then Kafka thinks the consumer is dead and will basically rebalance the partitions. And if there are multiple instances of the application running, it'll move those partitions to another instance. In this case, I'm only running one instance, but in any case, with this retry mechanism, we're not doing this in memory. Each time we get a failure, what's happening is we're performing a seek on the consumer and then repolling. So Kafka knows that we're still alive, even though we keep trying to reprocess the same record. But obviously, with no delay, there's not really a lot of benefit in this because having no delay between them, if we've got some kind of a transient problem, then more likely than not, it's not going to be fixed within a few milliseconds. And so, secondly, you can configure the error handler with a exception. You can classify exceptions. You can say this exception is retriable, another exception is not retriable. So, for example, we have a number of standard exceptions. So, if we get say a class cast exception, if we get a message conversion exception, anything that really it's not worth retrying, then we consider those to be fatal exceptions out of the box and just immediately toss that record, log it, or as you'll see later, take some other action with it. So that's really the only difference between those two versions. Was I just showed how to get some additional information about the topic. You can also get the partition that the record was in and stuff like that. In this case, I'm using a topic. This bean here is used by the framework to provision the topic. So I only have one partition in the topic. So let me move on to the next version, which is, it starts getting a little bit more interesting. With this version, what I've done is now, instead of using the out-of-the-box error handler, I've actually, and because of the wonders of Spring Boot, what we have to do is to add this error handler as a bean, and Boot will automatically wire that into the listener container. Just to clarify, this Kafka listener is basically sitting inside a listener container. The listener container is doing all the interaction with Kafka, and then calls the listener for each record that's found. So when Boot finds an error handler of the right type, it will inject it into the listener container so that we can use it. Now, there's two things I've done here. One is that I've added this recoverer, which I'll talk about in a minute, but I've also added a backoff. So in this case, I'm using a fixed backoff, and I'm only going to retry 4 times. That'll be 5 delivery attempts in total, with 2 seconds between each. And then the third thing, or the other thing we do is with this dead letter publishing recoverer. This gives us the ability to publish the failed record after whatever number of delivery attempts that we've configured. It actually can write it to a different topic. And by default, out of the box, it's basically the same name with this .dlt appended to it. But that's configurable. There are other constructors on the error handler where you can get a destination resolver, which say, given this failed record, I want this failed record to go from whatever topic to go to a different topic of choice. So it's not fixed. But this is just a default. So so with this version, when I run it now, we'll only get 5 delivery attempts, and there'll be a 2-second delay between them. So if we jump over to send our bad record followed by a good one, we get the same sort of behavior, but now we've got this 2-second delay between the deliveries. And we've also, so after the 5 attempts, now 5 delivery attempts, that's the main delivery plus the 4 retries. And then we finally got, but again, we see that we can't receive the good record until we've either successfully processed the failing record or we've recovered it in some way. And that's what we call this first parameter, first argument to the error handler is a recoverer, and you can recover it in whatever way you want. You might want to write it to a database, but in this case, we're just writing it to another topic. So that's basically, that functionality has been there since pretty much day one. I mean, probably 2017 when we added the seek to current error handler. Then we added the ability to put backoff, to configure it with backoffs and to publish to dead letter. So that's been the state of the art for some time now. Now, I think it was a little before Christmas, maybe a little before that. I was contacted by a fellow, community member, that he'd written some enhancements to, if you don't care about strict ordering of delivery, we can have a sort of a tiered waterfall retry mechanism, and have the framework take care of all of this infrastructure for us, and handle the records. And you'll see now why I added this receive topic, because what happens is when the record fails, it gets written to the next tier of retry topic, and then the listener on that topic will only consume after some delay, and then if that fails, it goes to the next level and the next level and then the next level. So let's just take a look at what's involved with that. So in this version, I've now, let me close this, we don't need this. I've now got rid of those new topic beans because we don't need to create the beans in this case. The new mechanism takes care of creating the all the topics involved with this retry. So we have a new annotation that we add in addition to the Kafka listener, and similar kind of information. So how many attempts, and a backoff. In this case, I've got an exponential backoff that starts at 2 seconds and multiplies by 2 each time with a max delay of 10 seconds. So we should see a 2-second delay, and then a 4-second delay, and then an 8-second delay, and then a 10-second, because 16 seconds would be longer than 10. And as I said, the framework takes care of provisioning all the topics. There's a lot of flexibility. You can control how many partitions are in all these retry topics, et cetera, et cetera. So if I now run this one, you should see a different behavior. Now I'm going to send my bad record followed by the good one. And what we'll see now in here is we received the failed record, and then it got requeued into this topic called topic retry after 2 seconds. And then we got my second. So now we do lose the strict ordering that is often needed with these applications. But for those environments where that's not important, then this can be useful, because it allows you to move on and work with records further down the log while not actually losing the failed record. So as we can see, with appropriate timing, so the first one, let's see, first one came in at 41, then 43 seconds, which is 2 seconds later, 47 seconds, which is 4 seconds, and then 8 seconds, and then 10 seconds. So I think it's a pretty cool feature. I mean, as I say, it's completely community driven. It was quite an effort to review it, quite a lot of code, but it was good quality code, and I'm quite impressed with it, especially being a community contribution. And then one more little flavor that it provides is with this mechanism, we can also add what he calls a DLT handler, which is basically creates yet another. So when this failed before, when the final failure occurred, it was written to a dead letter topic automatically. We didn't have to configure the like we did in the earlier example. It just gets sent to the dead letter topic. You can, however, add a DLT handler, and that again, the framework automatically provisions another listener container that will invoke this handler when all the failures have been exhausted. So let's run it one more time. Starting at 2 4. So now when we send our 2 records, you can see these are on different threads from the different containers. 4 seconds, 8 seconds, which got about 10 seconds. And it's sent from the dead letter topic. So this dead letter topic handler received the final failure. So we can again dispose of it as we want to, or we can just let it sit in the dead letter topic and have have some other application that can consume and or analyze the data in that topic. So as I say, I think it's an important and useful feature for many environments. Not everybody, but for some, it's useful, and I think it's a pretty nice feature. That's pretty much all I was going to cover today. Let me just jump to the what's new feature. As I say, there are some other features in here. They're fairly minor just tweaks to the framework, aside from this major feature, which is this non-blocking delayed retries. For complete information about that, it's in the reference. Pretty much, I think it's the last section in the reference. Non-blocking retries explains how it works, and then there's a lot more in terms of configuration capabilities across the board. In terms of here, we can set up, instead of doing it via the annotation, we can do it programmatically, and backoffs and all that. So I think that's all I have.
Some questions. So there was is it out of the box, and are there any version restrictions?
Is what out of the box? I'm sorry.
I missed the exact timing of it. So State Color 9, can you elaborate, please? I will let you know as soon as he responds.
This new feature, if the question's about
the DLT and retry.
Yes. So the non-blocking retries, what we've done is it's production ready, and we do have this warning at the beginning because it was such a big a lot of code. We couldn't give us thorough a review in terms of API, whether we might want to improve the APIs. So I've designated as experimental feature, but this is regarding the API only. The feature is considered to be complete and it is robust. There's no reason why it can't be used in production. The reason that we stipulated this experimental nature is because typically with Spring frameworks and Spring projects, we are very careful not to break APIs. We sort of have this fairly strong commitment for backwards compatibility, so that if you go from 2.7 to 2.8, say for example, the main APIs will not change. We always go through a deprecation cycle, so that we deprecate. If we want to change an API, we'll deprecate the old one, introduce the new one, encourage people to switch to the new one, and then in a later release, remove the deprecated one. In this case, I'm just reserving this for a short time, maybe for 2.7 only. Maybe by the time we get to 2.8, it'll be solid. I'm just saying here that there may be breaking API changes, not from 2.7 to 2.7.1 or 2.7.1 to 2.7.2, but if you go from 2.7 to 2.8, you may have to do some make some changes to APIs. But again, we'll strive not to do that, but I didn't want to paint myself into a corner in terms of not being able to modify those APIs should the need arise, because we have got some feedback from third parties. The guy who wrote it is using it, and at least one or two, several other people have been using it, and we've got some good suggestions coming back. One suggestion that came back on the 2.7.0 version, which is currently out there, 2.7.1 is due next week, is to have more flexibility on the naming of the. Let me run it again. You can see here that the default naming strategy basically you see here, I called it topic 4 is the main topic, and then we get topic 4 retry 2000, right? So that's the default naming strategy, is to add retry and then add the delay to the name of the topic. One user said, well, they have a policy on topic naming, and that they're not allowed to name. Certain topics have to be named one way. Topics that are used just for internal use have to have different naming structures. So the 2.7.1 release that's coming out has got a new capability to use your own naming strategy to name these fallback topics. But that's not really a breaking API change, but because it's so new in terms of hasn't had a lot of exposure in terms of end user use, I wanted to keep that flexibility. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
So currently I don't see any other questions. If any comes up in like the next minute or so, I will share them. But yeah, thanks for going through all this. Like Kafka's been like on my to-do list of looking at, like I've looked at some at like RabbitMQ and whatnot, but haven't actually ventured over to Kafka yet. So like seeing these things has been pretty cool. It's like a constant learning of new things.
Yeah, it certainly helps with the on-ramp having something like this too, because their API is pretty arcane, and you have to, there's sort of certain regulations you have to do this. You have to keep this poll going frequently enough, and it's good that the framework takes care of all that for you.
Yeah, I keep seeing cool things because before I started at VMware, which is I guess a little over a year ago now, I actually didn't know anything about Spring. So now I'm like slowly seeing more things. It's just like, oh, it does this. It makes this like super easy. Oh, that's cool. So it's been pretty interesting. But yeah, I don't see anything else. So Thank you so much for doing this. And yeah, it'd be cool if there's another thing that you want to go into another time. Sweet Color 9 says thanks.
Sure, I will do. And as I said, what I'll do is this final version is the fourth version. I'm going to add it to the samples here, so it'll become sample number 4 in the repo. And as I also said, best place to start is if you do a search on Stack Overflow. Actually, Google search will show up a lot of my answers on Stack Overflow. So there's a lot of that. We also have a Gitter channel if people are need anything. Gitter's not really very good for showing code snippets and stuff, but for a simple question, Gitter works pretty well. But for the most part, one of the things I'd urge people not to do is don't open GitHub issues for questions. We get a lot of people doing that, just asking questions in issues. I have enabled the discussions tab on the GitHub repo, so Q&A is good here or on Stack Overflow. I think Stack Overflow, as you can see, we've only got 4 entries here. Most people are still using Stack Overflow, but I did open up discussions as an alternative because we were getting too many cases where people were opening up issues when issues are really for reporting bugs or asking for new features. So Gitter discussion.
I didn't even know that there was a discussion. So this is new to me that there's discussions. I haven't actually seen it on a GitHub page yet.
I think they, I think it's out of beta. I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's out of beta. But you have to enable it in the repo in the settings. So. But it's kind of nice. They've got different types. They've got general comments, ideas, and then Q&A, and then show and tell. So it's kind of it's nice. It's a little bit more structured perhaps than Stack Overflow. So.
That's awesome, and I like how involved you are with the community and everything.
Oh well, a lot of this stuff, most of the ideas for new features and tweaks and enhancements all come from the community. I mean, it'd be nice if we had more community contributors, but even requesting a feature is a contribution in my mind if it's deemed to be useful. But yeah, as I said, this delayed retry via topics was a pretty large amount of code, several thousand lines of code that was contributed by one guy in the community. It's very, very nice to have that kind of a commitment to the project from the community.
Yay community, yay people.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again for doing this.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll if I think of anything else that would be useful, I'll be sure to let you know.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right then.